Hey everyone, this is your host Joe Crabb, just giving you a quick insight as to what to expect with today's episode. Today we're talking to Pastor Caleb Whitley, who is a kids ministry director. He's worked in the world of student ministry, and he is actually grown up at a campground. We're talking with Caleb to talk a bit about the value of overnight experiences for kids and students. So everything from overnight camps to retreats to mission trips, addressing the concerns that parents have, the value of those experiences, and how we look to partner together to continue to see our kids grow as young men and young women after God's own heart. So check it out. Great insights as to how to calm those nerves and capture those awesome opportunities. So without further ado, here's the show. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to Coming and Going, a podcast designed to be a biblical guide to your parenting journey. My name is Pastor Joe Crabb, and I have the privilege and honor of being your host, in which we look to take a look at God's word together and see how it leads us and guides us as we look to be faithful stewards of that which He has blessed us with our children. And so we hope that as you are coming and going, whether it is on your way up north, for a family vacation or walking the aisles of the grocery store, feeding those little monsters that fill your household, that this podcast would be an encouragement to you as we look to partner together. Again, to encourage each other, to learn from the mistakes that we've made, the grace that we've received, for so that we can experience the goodness of God as we see our children continue to grow as young men and young women after His own heart. So, thank you so much, as always, for your time. It is something that we truly cherish and appreciate. And of course, if there's ever any way that we can be of help to you, don't hesitate to reach out. And so today, I am so excited for the episode that we're talking about because we are talking about overnight experiences for kids and students. And so I'm gonna actually introduce our guest first, and then we're gonna kind of talk a little bit about why we're gonna talk about this episode. Why is this such important to dedicate a whole 30-ish minutes to, and then kind of go from there and hopefully be encouraging to you along the way. And so, without further ado, let me introduce. That's the second time I've used the words "without further ado" in this episode. Let's keep the tracker. Let's put it up here on the top here. Caleb Whitley. Caleb.
Yeah, yeah, Joe. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, dude, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. It's been a joy listening to coming and going over the last couple of years as you've been leading this out, and so I'm excited to talk about all things camp. It's near and dear to my heart. It's my background. It's kind of where the Lord really stirred in my life and kind of spurred me on and made me question His ministry. What's next for me? Kind of just where I grew up and what I was exposed to, and watching my parents lead in some really cool ways. And so, yeah, thanks for having me on, Joe.
Of course, brother. Thank you for the encouragement. It's you always have imposter syndrome when people say kind things to you about listening to the podcast because you're like, you do this, and then you're surprised when you find out people listen to it, and then they might get something out of it because you're like, I'm just faking it till I make it, right? Like most parents feel like they are, but
Yeah,
you're just
absolutely.
figuring it out. You're building the plane in midair while it's also going at Mach speed. So you're like, cool, man. Thanks for thanks for
It's
that.
that question as parents we have, like, we grew up and we saw those awesome parents crushing it, and we're like, did they have it all, or were they just faking it then?
They
Because I
just
look
hit it,
around, I'm
and we
like,
weren't paying attention.
we just didn't know, we didn't see it all.
No. Caleb, share a little bit about yourself. I shared at the top
Yeah,
of the show before we dove in here that you grew up at a camp, but
yeah.
you share a little bit about your family. You're obviously a parent as well as just your experience growing up. And what did you love the most? I mean, I think most of us as a kid loved going to camp or going to a retreat, and then you lived there. So
Yeah.
what'd you love about that? But just give us a brief insight into to your life.
Yeah, so I am married to my beautiful bride, Jenna. We've been married like over 9 years now, which is crazy to think about. And then we have two amazing kids. We have a son named Caden, uh, who is 3, and then we have a baby girl, Ellie, who was born back in February. And so it's been a sweet season having two awesome kids, uh, two fun ages. And so obviously with 3-year-old, full of energy, full of spunk, and loves everything to do with life. And then our little baby girl has just been starting to talk. And so she said mama about a month ago. And then she said dada maybe 2 weeks ago, which parents, if you remember those moments, it absolutely melts your heart when your kids say mama and dada for the first time. Those are really sweet moments. And so yeah, I've been at Woodside for a decade now in a number of different positions, from kids ministry to student ministries to family ministry, kind of at a couple different campuses, both at the Troy campus and the Farmington Hills campus. But prior to that, I grew up at a Christian camp called Center Lake Bible Camp. My dad was the camp director there, took over there in '98, which is crazy to think that we're talking pre 2000. But he was there for 21 years as the camp director, and so we lived on site, and so we kind of think through like a parsonage, like a church parsonage, but it was like that for camp. And so, in the sense that everybody who drove into camp past my house, we had technically a backyard because there was a road that kind of divided our yard from the rest of camp, but there was like no fence. We walked to camp everywhere. And there were seasons of our life where my dad didn't have a vehicle; he had a golf cart because he didn't need a vehicle. And so he would just drive a golf cart down to camp, or he would walk down to camp and do different things. And so we grew up at camp. I'm one of five, and so we have a big family, and it was a really awesome place to grow up. We made a ton of great connections, learned a lot. But it was the best place I could have imagined to grow up, in the sense that I saw a lot of ministry taking place, and that was I understood that more on as I got older, high school, college. I realized what an awesome opportunity it was to see ministry done. But really, in my formative years, I think of like my elementary. I was 6 when when my dad took that position, and I think through like, man, I had so many young adults, college age students in the summer, year-round interns, that just cared for our family, loved us, and they showed us what it looked like to love Jesus. And just I just think through that, there are so many people that I look back of, man, like elementary school, middle school, high school, of like, man, whether it was staff, whether it was other churches, and that was kind of my connection to Woodside. I think through like, man, like how did I end up here? Uh, One, through the grace of God and just like his timing and his sovereignty in those moments. But I think through a conversation that I had, Joe, with you, with Beth Laponzi, with Brittany Robertson years ago, when I was a middle school, high schooler, of like, what do you want to do when you get older? Um, and then through those conversations, those relationships grew, and I graduated college in 2015, and I was looking for a ministry position and ministry job, kind of open to anything. I had some cousins who are pastors out in the Columbus area. I called them. Had some friends from college that I called them to see if they knew of openings. And then lo and behold, the day after I made some of those phone calls, Brittany called me and said, "Hey, I have an opening for you. Do you want to come work at Woodside?" And I said, "Absolutely." Um, 3 weeks later, I started as the elementary director. Um, and yeah, that was 10 years ago. So it's kind of crazy to think through what life is. But back to your question, what was my favorite part about growing up at camp? Um, Man, that's a really tough question because there was probably so many things. Uh, I think through the question I asked my dad when he stepped away in 2019. I'm like, Dad, what was the best thing uh, what was your favorite thing through the last 21 years of seeing ministry done in a really cool, tangible way? And he said the relationships that you guys have made. And I would probably echo that, of like, what was my favorite thing? Just the relationships that I made. I think it's true in all camp settings. I just got a spotlight in that because I was there all the time. But the relationships you make at a camp are different because you go through something with people, you experience life in a really cool, tangible way, and the amount of time you spend with people is unique, is different than you don't get that in a lot of other places in life. I think of when we take kids, our third, fourth, and fifth graders away to Camp Woodside, we spend 48, 50 hours with them. But we spend more time with those kids in those 2.5, 3 days than we get with a kid the entire school year. And so, and so I would say that, just the experiences and the relationships that I made, because I had a ton of time with people, and you got to know people really quickly, through those shared experiences, and so I would say that was probably my favorite thing looking back now. In the moment, as a middle schooler, elementary age kid, I would say paintball course, the blob, the
The
evening
access
games.
to like
Yeah.
there's so much ice cream and
Yeah, going in the camp store and putting ice cream on my dad's tab every day, and it was endless, and so, that was in the moment for sure, but I think back now and say just the relationships that were made and the shared experiences that we were able to have with people.
I think too what people, what the listener, I hope what you hear is essentially, from Caleb is what we're trying to parse out a little bit for why is this a value to have the conversation? Um, is because there is something about that space that's created at a retreat, at a camp, at a mission trip, that is just unlike anything else. And so we're primarily going to talk a little bit from our own experience. So we'll talk a little bit. Caleb has a vast amount of camp experience because of the way he grew up, where he grew up. And we're going to talk a little bit about Camp Woodside and the overnight camp that we run for elementary age kids at our church and our student ministry retreats and so on. But we know that a lot of these principles still apply for anyone who might be listening. Maybe you got this episode from a family member who passed it on over to you. Or you just found us somehow randomly, and you're looking at your church setting, or you send your kids to another camp, like you would have sent your kid to Center Lake Bible Camp growing up, or in our area, we've got great camps like Spring Hill and Lake Ann, and we know Young Life has got some great camps. So I think that those principles still transcend. But what we also have observed, both as a culture and within ministry, as we know, is that there's been just a greater hesitancy in many ways, because to send kids to overnights, and so that's kind of shifted a little bit of what gets done and how it gets done and so on. And so there's only so much you can do to change that before it's like, well, hey, there's still a value here. So how do we live with the tension that we might feel of letting our kid go and being a part of something like this, while still ensuring their well-being in every aspect, and giving them that space to have a truly unique experience. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. So Caleb, what has been some of the tensions or hesitations that you have observed, maybe one or two, when it has come from parents uh, wanting to send their kid to an overnight?
Yeah, I think, one, there's just a shift in our culture that I would say has taken place over the last 10, 15 years, in the sense of like sleepovers, aren't necessarily a thing like they were, I feel like when we were growing up, Joe. And so, a lot of the times, when I think of when I was a kid, when I'd go to away camp, that was not the first experience that I was getting, away from my parents or maybe a family member. That I had sleepovers at friends' houses. That was something that, was a regular. I don't know if, social media, travel sports, I don't know necessarily why, that's been a shift, but I've seen that as a shift in the last probably 10, 15 years is, uh, just the age in which kids are going away for the first time. And so whether that is to as a sleepover, as, again, overnight experience as a camp. So I would say that's one is just that, the difference in that is what it looks like for when kids are going away. They're going away at a lot, older age. Parents are a little bit more cautious, to send their 7-year-old, 8-year-old, to a week away, which I don't disagree with. I think as a parent, I have those same, questions in those, that understanding. But I think that was just a difference. We live in a culture where right now we have access, to things all the time. And it's a little bit nerve-wracking as a parent to send your, child, your kid to a space where you don't have access to them all of the time. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest differences. The other one is just, the sense of safety of where you're sending your kid. I think, again, I look back in where I grew up and when I grew up is we assumed safety. I would say our parents made that assumption, off the jump is that they assumed that places were safe. Um, and I would say our parents now, the general population, they have questions, which is rightly so. And so they're asking questions. Um, And so I think Woodside's combated that in a couple different ways, which I'm thankful for. I think the ability to see where your kid's going is huge in the sense that if you're going to send your 7, 8, 9 year old to a week away or to 3 days away or wherever that is, you want to know where your kid's going to be at. And so whether that is serving as a small group leader, serving on work crews, serving in different areas, um, you wanna be able to see where your kid is going, and Woodside did that really great, Joe, I think back in the early 2000s, we ran a parent, like, family camp, to Center Lake before we did our week-long camp, and so it gave parents the opportunity to see the camp where their kid was gonna go, just because again, I think anytime you see something, you can have your awareness on it of saying, "Hey, where is my kid gonna be at?" Uh, there's trust there, but there's also understanding of like, "Oh, this is what my kid's experiencing. I'm for this. I want my kid to experience this." And so just that understanding of, what camp is can go a long ways. But then again, I think culturally, we've just been at a place where, uh, overnight experiences are, down in comparison to what they were 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. I think all those things measure up as well. Obviously, there's been, yeah, sadly, there's been history and incidences in which horrible things have happened at overnight experiences, and so you never want to diminish that, right? It's always such a tough thing, the brokenness that we have to exist, that we live within, and we know that we have to live, in this world as such. As we try to be wise and prudent as to how we care well for our kids, as well as again what kind of opportunities we want to see them grow in. And we can apply that to so many aspects of life, but you don't want to diminish obviously some of those incidences that have sadly occurred. Um, and so we live at that tension, like you said. He also brought in there's some other aspects, some other things to take into consideration, such as busyness of schedule. There might be financial costs. It might be, again, we're seeing certain things be delayed even longer. We have to remember historically that the adolescent slash teenager culture has really only been around for 75 years. That started taking root in the 1950s. So, and then you see it as it continues to progress, where nowadays it's common that an individual may still be living at home with their parents until they are 26, 27, 28. And not because they're, a deadbeat. It's just the reality, whether it's a financial reality, a family reality, a bunch of other things. It's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But those are realities. So even within our culture, whereas, hey, in the 70s, 80s, even 90s, like, oh, yeah, hey, you're usually out of the house by the fact that you're 19, 20, 22, depending if you go away to college or whatnot, uh, that there's even that built in where it's a longer ramp for it. I think that there's a number of things that fit into it. And so we talk a little bit what the hesitation is. Now let's talk about real quick what's some of the value of the overnight experience, and then we've already hinted at it a little bit. What does it look like for a parent to kind of see the value, um get to a point of resolution at some point with maybe some of their hesitancies, and then what's that next step of action? So what have you seen? You've shared a little bit from your own story, but what's some of the value overall for overnight camps and retreats?
Yeah. Joe, there's a bunch of studies, you know them, of how many times somebody needs to hear something before they can actually hear it, or how many discipling adults, caring adults does a young adult need in their life. And I think that's one of the biggest values of something, is one, the time that you get to be with people that love you and care for you and want the best for you. And you get to hear things in different and unique spaces. I think of the times that I've been a small group leader. There's been parents that have come up and said, that, "Hey, my kid listened to you, and I don't know why." And there's realities to that of just like the differences that parents, you guys are doing a lot of things right. Most everything you're doing is right. And so don't question what you're doing or why you're doing what you're doing. Sometimes when your kids are just at an age where they want to hear it from somebody else, and so I think that can go a long ways. But I think, Joe, that there's two things, and one is time. again, I pointed to it of like what it looks like, and the amount of time that you get away with people, and that is so different than every other space that you're in life, or church, or even like I think of like travel sports or even sports. Like I think why are sports so beneficial? Uh, in like there's a communal side around that. I'm not saying they're not benefit or they're beneficial in that. We can have a whole nother podcast about travel sports. Um, but why is their community so tight knit? And that's because of the time that they spend together. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons for benefit to overnight experiences is because of the time that and uh, just through shared experiences. Two, I think the biggest thing I would say in our culture today, kids are doing less. Um, and so they're not exposed to as many things, and so, I think just a change of scenery can go a long ways. I think of, again, 15, 20 years ago, video games were not, I'm not saying they weren't around, they were just different. The consumption of them, was way different. I think of social media, especially when we're talking about our teenagers. We didn't have social media, we didn't have smartphones, and so if we wanted to do something, we actually had to move to go do something. And I would say that's a difference now, where again a teenager can do a lot of things sitting on the couch on their phone. They can converse with friends in those unique ways. Um, so I would say that is just being able to get away in a change of scenery of having kids experience something that they may have never experienced before. I think of the times where I was a kid and we would have uh, people come in from all over the state and kind of the Midwest region to camp, and we would expose them to something that they've never experienced before, and that could be as little as like riding a horse. That could be something like going on the blob or going swimming in a lake. Like I just think of that's not something that all of our kids do all the time. Like I think of how many kids have the privilege to ride a horse in depending on the area that you live in. Like that's different. Like, and so man, like to have your 8, 9, 10-year old, 13-year old, 14-year old have that opportunity is an awesome opportunity. Like I think there's so many things that we can as kids you learn because of you experienced it, you did it. And so I think that's there's a huge opportunity to that. But just time away, I think there is something when you uh, can spend time with people more than just 2, 3 hours on a Wednesday night or Sunday night or Sunday morning. That you can just build relationships. You get to know somebody. Uh, Both leaders listen differently and kids listen differently over time. Of like, I just think of there's been so many stories of really healthy um, discipling conversations that took place just because you had the opportunity and the time to do that. You weren't rushed, and so I think of like, man, like what does it look like to have free time on a Thursday afternoon or Saturday afternoon where you literally don't have anything to do for the next 2 hours. And so you're gonna have conversations, you're gonna share life, you're gonna do things, uh, which is so different than a typical night at student ministries where like, hey, I there's an end
Or
time
even,
and
yeah,
it's
even on a Sunday morning, like you said, like
yeah,
with
like
meeting with kids and everything. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's like we have 50 minutes before the end of service. How do
yeah,
I have an open-ended conversation that we can just have an open-ended conversation. But at a
yeah,
camp, you're like, "Oh, hey, we have 2 hours and you wanna go swim with some friends and we got some time after that." Or you wanna go on the rock wall or go on the zip
yeah.
line, like, those are all things that we can have conversations around that, and know that, like, "Hey, we didn't finish the conversation today. Well, guess
Or
what?
we can pick
We
it
can finish
back
that
up.
tomorrow."
Yep.
Which is, like,
Or we
so
could
different
finish it
than
on the next Sunday we see each other, but
exactly.
it's
Yes, it
keeps
just
going.
continues versus
Yep,
where, like, a Wednesday night, you're like, "Oh, I'll see you," like, we have to finish this conversation.
yep,
And we have to finish it now, and it may pick up again in a week from now if we have time,
yep.
or if you yeah. So I think there's just uh, a lot more obstacles uh, that getting away uh, kind of breaks down those obstacles.
Yeah, I it's the value there. You shared it from your own personal stories as well, right? That time provides a space for greater relationships to be built, which often serves as a headway for life change to occur. So the value of overnight experiences really cannot be downplayed, right? Um, because they just provide such a different space, and we see this in our own lives in many ways, right? I just had the privilege of going out west for a trip with my wife, went to some national parks and everything, and it's not that I don't think that Michigan is beautiful. I do. I am in awe of Michigan and, the fall leaves changing and standing on Lake Michigan shore and all that. We live in a beautiful state. I enjoy God's nature. But man, there is something different about going away into a different environment and still in some ways interacting with the same thing. Obviously, I know the landscape is different out west and but still the end result is the same. I now find myself in awe of God in a different way than I was before, like a similar way through his creation, but in a different way through this type of creation. So it's like even there is recent study that shared what's the most impactful thing for your kid, outside the experience. Like what's the thing your kid's gonna remember the most? Um, and it's, they polled like thousands and thousands of kids and said, what do you remember the most about your childhood? Uh, the number one answer was uh, trips, was experiences with my family. So it's like trips with my family, trips with my team, trips with my like was being able to get away because there is something about that that's like just sticks with us, like that going to a different space. And for these things, we know from our experience, we can speak firsthand about our experiences at Woodside. We can speak firsthand about some of the other camps that we've been a part of. But my aim to going to my out west trip was to provide an experience for my wife and I to just enjoy nature, enjoy creation, enjoy time together. We know as people who planned kids camps and retreats and have talked with others from other churches, what is their desire? To create a space for kids to connect with God, His Word, and with Christ-centered community. Now, and some people are like, oh, is that really what you guys are doing? You guys have a ton of fun. Yeah, we do because they're kids. Uh, but also, I'm an adult and I like to have fun. But our primary aim for anything that we've ever planned for camps, retreats, even mission trips, which have something obviously that should be easy. We're mission trips, but it's like you're still trying to be intentional with how we creating space for these kids to connect with God, to connect with His Word, and to connect with a Christ-centered community in a way that's different. They do it on a week in and week out basis at student programming, kids programming in their household or whatever. But we wanted to, it's still going to be uniquely different. Even the only thing that's really different is that we're in this space as opposed to this space. Like you said, we have had the conversation with parents 100 times. We're like, yep, you know what? I've been saying to that to my kid, they shouldn't talk like that. They shouldn't talk like that. They shouldn't talk like that. And then you told them on Saturday morning at retreat they shouldn't talk like that. And guess what? Now they don't want to talk like that. Like, sorry. I don't know, but at least we're on the same team, right? Uh, it's the same thing. So that's where that value comes from. And I've seen it in my own life and seen it in the lives of other kids create having that separate space for them to be able to connect in that way. And I think maybe even just hearing that from somebody who's planned X amount of camps and retreats and so on, for you to know that if one of the concerns you might have is like, what are you guys actually doing? What is the purpose of your camp? Ask that to the person who's running it. And I'll tell you that if they don't answer with, hey, ultimately, we're just trying to create a space for kids to connect with God, connect with God's word, and connect with Christ centered community, like something around that realm, then yeah, you do have concern about sending your kids. But that should be you should know the purpose and vision of the experience your kid is going to be a part of and why you would want them to be a part of it. Because are they going to have fun? Yes, they're going to have fun. Like, if you send your kid to a Woodside camp or retreat, they're going to have fun. That's and they should have fun. Now, it shouldn't just be all fun and no. That, 'cause guess what? Connecting with God is fun. Like connecting with God through His Word can be fun in life, like can be life giving. Connecting with God through worship is fun and life giving. Connecting with a Christ centered community can be fun and life giving. That doesn't mean that it's not also sincere and has has tough moments and all these other things, and that we don't take it with a great heart of appreciation and gratitude and treat it with reverence and everything. But it's also fun and life giving. So Jesus came so we may have life and life to its fullest. So what are some of the we've talked about a little bit. Let's revisit that. Let's give the listener we'll start with three. We'll go three, we'll probably give them five, but 3 to 5 tangible ways to kind of maybe ease some of that concern, whether it's questions to ask, roles to have, when it comes to sending their kid to an overnight. So what comes to the top here?
Yeah, what comes to the top of my mind is that right there, the question. Just ask questions. Uh And don't feel like, parents, you can ask questions. I had a conversation with a mom, probably mid-July this year, right before we took some kids to Camp Woodside. And the mom was like, "I'm just nervous. I don't know the questions." And then through that, it sparked something very different in her of like, "Oh, this is actually isn't a nerve-wracking thing." The questions were not that crazy. They were not that different. Um, and so in her mind, they were these huge things, but they weren't actually that big things. They were things that we, put into our programs, that we make sure that kids are safe. We make sure that they're eating, 3 meals. Like, they're just, like, the things that parents are like, "Oh, I don't actually know anything about this camp." So I guess that would be the thing is just ask questions. Don't feel like you can't ask questions. Ask questions, to the staff that are running it, to small group leaders that are going, and to other parents that have sent their kids in the past. And so that would be the first one I would say is just ask questions. Don't feel like you can't ask questions.
That's good.
Um,
Yep. Ask questions. So know the questions you want to ask, and don't feel like you're being a nuisance when asking those questions. I think having fair expectations of those questions, of the answers to those questions are good. But I like what you also said in asking multiple people, right? So ask your question to a parent that sent their kids before. And even if you're like, I'm new to the church, I don't know who to ask. Ask Caleb who to ask. That's I'm like, hey, I want to send my kid to camp. Um, is there somebody who sent their kid to camp before? I just want to talk with him about it. And we've done that before. We've had kids who have had food allergies who've gone on mission trips. And what we've done is, hey, they've gone on this. I actually know another parent who sent their kid on the same mission trip, and their kid had food allergies. I can answer some questions for you, but I know it's going to also give you greater peace of mind is talking with this parent. Like, I'm here to help you in any way, but also go and talk to this parent. And this parent wants to talk to you, right? Like they want to help you because they get exactly it. So um, know what questions you want to ask. And it can be everything from safety. Woodside, we take that very seriously. All of our leaders are background checked. They go through their background check process every 2 years. We have active training that we do for them. Every leader has to go through a sexual abuse training, like science for it, and obviously protocols and procedures for it. Our safety and security team is very robust. Individuals who are also serving up there in a non like direct leadership capacity, like so they're not in the room with a kid or anything like that. They also have a background check, so it is something that we have outside entities that help inform us of these practices. So it's not just like an echo chamber of what we think we should do. It's based off experience, expertise, both internally and externally. And so it's a huge value that we have. We know it's a huge value a lot of places have, but we can at least vouch for the place that we have the opportunity to minister to and saying, yep, it's something we take. There's multiple adult leaders leaders who have been background trained and checked and certified, like that are in those cabins. Even when you have students who are doing that, they are those who have been, background checked and trained and certified. So, yeah. So whether it's a safety question or you said a food question, what's the meal? What's this? What's the schedule? Right? Like that's a huge thing. And then what are they learning? And I know that we've always aimed at Woodside at least to provide an overview of teaching, to say, hey, here's what to expect, here's questions to give, from our days in student ministry, putting together parent packets that kind of cover those things. To I know even you with you and the kids camp for stuff with Flip and everything, just saying, hey, here's the question to ask, here's the verse, here's the song, which is also always so helpful, right? So there's ways there. So have the questions you want to ask. What other insight do you have for to help the parent kind of bridge the gap from the concerns they might have to wanting their kid to be a part of this awesome experience?
Yeah. The thing that I come back to, Joe, is something that I think is to trust what camps can provide. There's a reason that camps have been around. Yes, like to trust that, like to know that like there's a reason that camps have been as long as they have. There's a reason that as modes have changed for how churches have done things, they've always done camps. So, like, clearly they see benefit in that. Clearly they see something that is good in that. And so I would just again, parents like trust that. I think of like Camp Woodside's been happening since I think the early 70s, like 72 or 73. And so it's been yeah. So like we've been taking kids in the same way we've been taking kids for the last 50 years to a camp to have again those milestone moments, a memorable moment where they can encounter Jesus with a discipling adult that cares for them, who's just going to step back into life with them after. And so I would say trust that. Parents, I know that may not be the easiest thing to do, but to trust that, to say like, hey, Camp Woodside's been happening for 50 years. We've been taking students on retreats for years, and that's a Woodside thing. But that's also just a world thing. Like churches across the world send their kids to places for uh, those milestone moments, those camp experiences, those overnights, and so you're not alone in that. That there's nervousness there. You're also not alone that you're not the only one doing this. And so there should be there should be a safety net in that. Like, oh, hey, there's 200 other families that are sending their kids to the same camp, and then there was 200 families that did it last year, and 200 families that did it the year before, and 200 the year before, and that's been happening for 50 years just within Woodside. And so that's where I would say to like parents trust that that you're not alone in that, but also know that we hear you and we see you, and so know that don't forget the first one. Don't forget that you can ask questions, even though we have done this for years. Trust it, but don't feel like you can't ask questions.
Yeah, and don't feel like you can't get involved as well. And you mentioned that a little bit earlier, and I know that from anything from, um, like you said, there was a family camp opportunity like there was back in the day, where obviously for both camps, for Camp Woodside, for student ministry retreats, even just like a regular programming kind of gives you a glimpse into stuff, right? I think kind of knowing what to expect, what to get involved, like what does it look like is helpful. Go as your students, go as a leader. You don't have to be your kids leader, but go as a leader. If you're like, hey, I don't know if I'm great with being in a room with kids. That's great. Go and help run games. Go and help give medicine out. Go and help work in the kitchen. Like there are ways to help, and it's okay to give yourself that space. I'm in the area, but I'm still giving my kid their space. Um, to be able to do that. And so this is why it's also important of like, hey, getting them involved on a Sunday or on different events and different programs, being involved in like a flip camp, which is not overnight, but at least gives you opportunity for a kid to catch a glimpse of what it looks like to be a part of a larger event within kids ministry. Is also super super helpful for getting you acclimated and getting them acclimated. And so know that you can ask questions, know that you're not alone. Trust in some ways, the legacy of camp, and realize that part of what's kept it around has been its aim and desire to grow and change with the times to best meet the needs of the family and still provide that environment for a kid to continue to have those experiences to grow. And then find your role. Find your role within it. It can be anything from again being an auxiliary type of person to being a counselor itself, and down the line. And so, um, Caleb, this has been great. I do have one last question for you, and I think it's an important question when it comes to camp and to kids and everything. And that is this: were you a stuffy kid or a blanky kid? Because you can't go to camp or retreat without your stuffy or without your blanket. I mean, that right there solves a lot of issues that a kid would have about going to camp. So
Joe, I'll never forget, the camp I grew up at, we did, camp was for 5 nights for, 3rd graders and beyond, but for, 1st and 2nd graders, did something called pre-camp, which was just like it's a pre-experience. It was 2 nights, 3 days. And mind you, I lived like a quarter mile, like from not all of camp, but a lot of camp. You could see my house. I'll never forget the first time I went away. I said I was homesick, and my dad had to come to tuck me in. So, um, and I had one stuffed animal. He brought me like 3 or 4 more. And so I was definitely a
it,
stuffy kid, as a camper. But those can go a long ways.
that's
There
it.
I get those moments as man, as you asked that question, I was like, 1, I was a stuffy kid. Didn't I don't remember my blanket at that age.
Yeah,
But I'll never
I was a
forget
stuffy kid. Yeah.
as a kid going into 1st grade, my dad hopped in the golf cart, drove a couple more stuffed animals down because it was 10:30 and I was crying, and I said
That's
I was
awesome.
homesick, and, like,
And you
the
live
just
on
the
camp.
and I lived on camp. Like, it was like again, I had,
That's awesome.
again, I ate dinner in the same places as all the kids did, so
Yeah,
I would eat
yeah.
dinner, in the same place before I went to camp as I did go to camp, and so, like, there was just yeah, but definitely a
That's
stuffy
it.
kid. Um, yeah, I would but and I would say, something that was fun, we at the camp I grew up at, we did, like, a stuffed animal, like, bring your bear to breakfast day, and so
Oh,
if
I
you had a
like it.
stuffed animal and so it was a bear awareness breakfast, and
That's
so
great.
all the
Bear
kids would bring in their
awareness breakfast.
bear awareness breakfast,
That's
and
it.
so you had 200 kids with their stuffed animals at breakfast, uh,
Again, that
some
is
would
real quick. That is the thing I do love about camps and retreats. And again, paratherapy. Like your kid could start the day off with bringing their bear to breakfast, and
yeah,
then be ending the evening just like in tearful worship, so grateful and feeling like this
yes,
closeness to God. Like there is nothing quite like it. So
and that's like that's like as a middle schooler, like a
yeah,
7th
yeah,
grader doing that, or
yes.
and yeah, there's those moments of,
It's so
uh,
beautiful. It's
yeah,
so
it
pure.
is. Yes,
Well,
absolutely
Caleb,
it is.
thank you for your time, man. This was awesome. For those listening, I hope it's an encouragement to you. I hope that you know that we understand concerns that there might be at times with sending your kid to an overnight. I hope that you know that, especially if you're part of Woodside, that our desire is to meet you with where those concerns are at, care well for you, and help continue to bring you along as we look to continue to see your kid, your student grow as a young man, young woman after God's own heart. And so I hope that it's been an encouragement. We're also dropping this episode right around the same time that registrations can begin opening up for some of our overnights. We'll probably re-release this at different times when registrations opening up for some of our overnights. And so always know that regardless of what church location you're at Woodside, or again, if you're listening to this and you go to another church, we would encourage you to have those conversations, ask those questions, see the value, trust the legacy, and find your role for being a part of the camp. Whether that's even, hey, you're a parent listening to this and you're all in on sending your kids to overnight, man, start championing that with other parents that you know this need that encouragement, need to hear another parent's voice to say, "Oh yeah, you know what? Let me ask those questions. Let me address these concerns because I want that for my kid." And camp's not perfect. There's going to be good experiences, bad experience, but ultimately, what we hope every kid leaves with is being drawn closer to God, being drawn closer to God's word, and being drawn closer to a Christ-centered community. So, um, that's it. That's it for today, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in, Caleb. Thank you again, and thank you. Yeah, bro, this was awesome. This is so good. And thanks everyone for listening. If you ever need a great question to ask a friend, ask them if they were a stuffy kid or a blanky kid growing up. But that's it. We love you guys. We're praying for you guys, and we are here for you as you are coming and going.